Hello, good afternoon from Italy. I think I'm live. I'm just catching up on Facebook to see if everything is okay. It seems so. I can see me, so we can start. Welcome to this class that is totally devoted to one of my favorite Italian painters, Amedeo Modigliani. How are you doing, guys? Yeah, I hope you're all fine. And if you want to comment, remember that StreamYard needs your requirements to accept the conditions, and I will be able to see the comment, but I'm not able to see from the screen that I'm using the name of the one who comments. So I am catching up with my smartphone at the same time. Well, before I start with my presentation, I already have prepared a beautiful slideshow that I'm going to share with you. I want to point out which is the aim of these art classes that I'm giving for free, and it's quite a benefit if you consider that I share my knowledge with all of you, and it takes quite a long time to prepare all the stuff. And hope you will be glad, and you will take something new for you, and you will be able to do your own research about the topics that I share each time I share them. The main purpose I want to obtain is that we increase our curiosity for the new things. Okay, you can't be tired of searching and reading and learning new things. This is the way I am, and so this is the pressure I feel, and it makes possible all this job. Okay, um, like when you are by yourself for a day, then of course you can really benefit from loneliness. It's a healthy loneliness. But when you stay alone for a week, a month, a year, what will happen? You will be drained. You will have gone sad, okay? You would lose your interest for life. But instead, if you keep on exchanging your energy with something else, then everything is different. The same happens with staying creative. So we can stay creative if we look around us and we always try to find new strength, new sources of inspiration. And that's the mission I want to achieve in this group. So, welcome again. I see that someone is popping up to join our meeting, and so we are ready to start. And I will bring you to Paris today, so the city of love and the legend. Let me just become small, and I will start to share my screen. I'm I was not able to make my tea today, but my intention was to have a cold tea, and one of our members guessed about it. So I wanted to make a cold tea with lime and mint, so very fresh for this hot summer. Modigliani is for me, like a source of inspiration. I really and clearly remember when I was 24 years old, so 16 years ago, when hello everyone. Hi Alina, I see that you're with us. Welcome on board, and I hope you will really appreciate this masterclass. And remember that if you catch the replay, let me know with the hashtag replay, and I will be able to answer to your questions if you put them in the comments. But I was telling you that When I was just a young girl at university, um, during Easter holidays, I was able to go to Rome and see a really huge exhibition of the paintings by Amedeo Modigliani. And it really changed my mind. I was so in love with him because also my mother was in love with him previously, and I had some books about him at home, of course. She is a doctor, so um, pharmaceutics used to give these beautiful books, very expensive books, really, about art to the doctors. And we had one. And so when you see for the first time in reality something that you have previously studied and appreciated on paper, well, everything is different. And I really wish you to experiment the same excitement, because it's quite an experience that is worthy of being lived. When we think about Amedeo Modigliani, we think about a person that had no rules in his life. And maybe it's true, since we will be able to see in a few minutes that he pulled apart rationality when approaching to art. And maybe his studies and his studies about philosophy, particularly, led him to think that it was not possible to make art without being, a genius, but living dangerously. Okay, that's what he did, basically, living dangerously. He was a member of a Jewish family. Yeah, he lived in Liguria, in a place called Livorno. And you have to really understand that living in Italy until maybe the Second World War was not like living abroad, such in the Great Britain or France. Our identity as Italians is quite a new thing, and the political instability of our government and of our history speaks about this. So, really, Italy is a country that you have to consider it's made of several pieces, and each region has a strong identity, and it's very hard to find, a common way of proceeding. And it's very different from what happens in nations that formed and were born back in the Middle Age, for example, such as the UK or France, and also Germany or Spain. Okay, this is the main reason that pushed Modigliani to go away at a certain point of his life. But let's go back to the childhood. And her mother was a French woman. She knew several languages and always involved his child in many, many activities. Her name was Eugenie, and his father was a Jew, so the family was mainly Sephardic Jewish, and they had, financial issues during the time, and at a certain point they lose everything. So there is a scene of the movie that calls and recalls about Modigliani's life, starring Andy Garcia. You may have seen it, and I will write a short post to link it properly. When the police comes because they want to take away all the furniture from the house, no, to get some money back because of the debts, they had put everything on the bed of the mom, which was giving birth to the boy, just to say that there was a law that prevented policemen to take away all the furniture and all the goods of the family when things were put on the bed of a pregnant woman. And it was quite a symptom of the hard life conditions that they had to teach, they had to face, and always trying to survive. But her mother was a special woman, and I think that again we have the demonstration that as women we can see far, very, very far, because memories about Modigliani tell us that his mother, may have stated like this: he behaves like a spoiled child, but he does not lack intelligence. We shall have to wait and see what is inside his chrysalis. Perhaps an artist? So, she had an intuition about what the future Modigliani would become. And in fact, in spite of quite a difficult childhood because of illnesses, he was able to visit Italy all around, and her mother brought him to museums to see, the art of the Renaissance, which is prevailing here in Italy. He had pleuritis and tuberculosis and typhoid fever, so he was quite ill during his childhood, and he was a good student because he always wanted to read philosophers by his own. So he really loved Nietzsche, for example, and Spinoza, who may have been one of the ancestors, but who, you never know. It's quite something which is not sure, but during the periods that he was very well, he was able to travel in Italy. And when he was not well, of course, he was at home and his mother take good care of him. Since his mother was aware about the artistic talent of the boy, um, she enrolled him with the best painter in Livorno, whose name was Guglielmo Micheli. Guglielmo Micheli was a painter of a certain artistic current, which is called the Macchiaioli, and it corresponds more or less to the post-impressionism in France. And they had a particular attention to social conditions, and their paintings represented a way to bring attention to to the development of better life conditions for the poor. Modigliani, enters the art, enters his artistic way, working like a Macchiaioli painter. So basically, you see here that at the beginning of his career, Modigliani didn't paint portraits. Okay, we now know that his masterpieces are portraits, female portraits most of all, but his beginnings were as a landscape painter, like the other Macchiaioli painters, like Giovanni Fattori, for example, was the main Macchiaioli painter of all times, and he was born in Livorno as well. So there is also a land factor that you have to consider, no? In this case, you see the use of the colors here in this Tuscan road is quite interesting because there is a wise use of complementary colors. You see the yellow together with some violet, and the atmosphere is recalling exactly what would you would find in a painting by Giovanni Fattori that I will address you to in the comments as well. But let's go again, let's move further. And so here we arrived to the point that Modigliani wants to move to France. Maybe Livorno was quite narrow, strict minded, like maybe other places in the Italian province, so he wanted to immerse himself in art. He had studied for 3 years in Florence at the Accademia, and then he decided to leave because after having a strong classical foundation, then you have to find your artistic voice. And at that time, there was no better place than Paris, where all artists lived together in a certain neighborhood called Montmartre. And so in 1905, Modigliani moved to Paris, settling in Montmartre, and he rented a small studio and decided to decorate it, recalling his artistic background, so using heavy drapes and Renaissance reproduction paintings. You may have seen that he was quite handsome, good looking, with this curly black hair and a beautiful face, and we have quite a good number of pictures that are really witnessing which was the condition of life for an artist in the Paris of the 1920s. Okay. Mm, I expect that we may all find quite a poor existence, quite a very basic existence. So no space for luxury things. Okay, only a few artists were able to make consistent money from their sales during life. One of these was Picasso, which we will mention going on. But the other one, and the other ones, and Modigliani for sure was among them, really struggled to survive and to guarantee themselves a good level of life. Okay, but he was immediately recognizable. One, because he was Italian, and I really am proud of being Italian because you really feel that you're special. I don't know why, maybe everyone, but we have something special. Secondly, because he was able to be charming, even if he was poor. Don't look at this picture in particular, but there will be some other pictures that I can adjust to you. Look like this. It was very charming. So women absolutely love him. He had love affairs, tons and tons of love affairs, and also men were quite astonished about his ability of dressing up in certain ways. So he was charming and fascinating, and he was well dressed, even if he was quite poor. Okay, so the Italian style again is a branding, and Modigliani soon was named Modì, which sounds like a French word, maudit, that means cursed. It's like what we say an omen, nomen. So the destiny is deeply connected with the name that you bring. And he was 100% an artist for that time. So he was very prolific at the beginning. He was quite, near to the currents of the post-impressionism, as we will be able to tell in a minute. But he was very, very prolific, and he was able also to sketch over 100 of drawings per day. What remains to us, a large, huge number of drawings are still with us because they have been included in private collections, and we will talk about it later. Many of them were exchanged for, a glass of wine maybe, or a meal inside cafes or restaurants. Many of them were destroyed because Modigliani was a genius, but he also was without rules. So this turmoil, interior turmoil, is quite a constant across his life. Okay. He lived basically the same life of every other artist you would meet in the Paris of the 1920s, because he used to take drugs and drink absinthium, which was also a drug combined with alcohol. So maybe not eating too much and living how he was able to live. Okay, this is one of the examples that I want to show you. It is a nude of a female women reclining on a bed. Maybe I'm sure that he had muses and models that posed for him, and also he joined some academies in Paris. Okay, um, there was a cultural exchange between all the artists, and models were models for all of them. Imagine that he was able to sketch with charcoal, because this, I think this is charcoal, or maybe it is quite a soft pencil, 100 of these drawings per day. So he was very, very, very productive. But instead, together with being productive, he needed something more, maybe a rule, okay, maybe a daily routine which was fixed and established, maybe a mentor, who knows. And we'll see that he was quite lucky, because as soon as he arrived in Paris, he immediately found a man who was able to take care of him. And this man was Paul Alexander, who was a physician and an art lover. And he was able to commission and buy a lot of paintings from Modigliani until 1914. So he stopped his career as a mentor because he had to leave for the war. Okay, we have to thank this man, because the collection of Paul Alexander is one of the largest collection of Modigliani's works still available today. He collected more than 400 drawings by Modigliani. This is one of the first paintings dating back to Paris. Okay, this is 1909, and this is a portrait of a Jewish woman with no name, so we don't know her identity. And what was his relationship with his religion? He publicly said, "Oh, well, nice to meet you, I'm Modigliani the Jew." So he didn't want to hide the origin of this family. And like him, also Marc Chagall from Belarus went to Paris, was publicly a Jew. Okay, the problems will come after, as we know. At the beginning, the traits are quite similar to the physical features that you may find in one of the portraits of Paul Cézanne, the post-impressionist painter. And we still don't recognize an authentic original voice by Modigliani, but in a few years, as we will see in a moment, his style really develops and becomes authentic and very, very original. This is an example of evolution of the style. These are three different portraits of Paul Alexander. The first was painted in 1909, the second in 1912, and the last one in 1915. And you see that he progressively detaches from the smooth and soft traits of the post-impressionist way of teaching, and he gradually assumes and incorporates in the painting geometric elements that are common to Cubism as well. We can't forget that in those years, Pablo Picasso and Juan Gris work in Paris and develop the artistic movement of Cubism. And because of the exchange between artists living in the same area, we see that this geometric trend is really included also in Modigliani's artwork, even if it's not fragmented and taken to the maximum level as happens in the portraits by Pablo Picasso. Okay, we will see some other examples like this one. This is a nude, for example. So on the left you see sorry, a sitting nude from the beginning, dating back to 1909, and then on the right you see a sitting nude dating 7 years later. So in just 7 years, everything happens. Okay, and you see how the approach to color and the use of line is very different, and also the use of colors, because here in the second painting we find that some ultramarine blue has gone, has faded, and the colors are more realistic, not necessarily the features, but at least the colors. Which are the technical elements that distinguish and make Modigliani's paintings recognizable all over the world? At first, we have to consider, of course, the elongated neck and faces. So this is something that it's quite original, of course, but has some correspondence in African art. And we have the proof that Modigliani was aware and had connection with African art because of the sculptures. He was also a sculptor, even if he didn't make many sculptures, because he was, ill with the lungs. So he was not able to stay there and breathe all the dust of working on marble, for example. Okay, so we know him for the paintings, but he was also a sculptor, and his sculptures are quite similar to the African masks in wood. So the long face and the eyes in this geometric shape without expression at the beginning, and that's what you find, for example, in this female portrait. Then we have long noses, okay, a long nose and defined eyebrows that slope to meet the edges of the nose, and a lot of paintings show people that have no pupils, okay, no iris or pupil. Some movies that were made suppose that Modigliani painted the irises inside an eye only when he was able to know perfectly the soul of the person that he was going to be portrayed, and this is the case, for example, of Jeanne, that in the movie is really shown that Modigliani doesn't paint her irises until he says, okay, I know her. And so in the last portrait, you will see, this is a movie, of course, a portrait of Jeanne that incorporates pupils as well. The use of line is quite a mixed one because you see the tie here is just a quick single paintbrush, brush stroke, and the line sometimes is very soft and sometimes is quite marked, it's visible. I really love the transition of the pink on the cheeks. This is something that I love. So the color of the faces and of the bodies for me is amazing. And also the backgrounds are quite simple, so a lot of times you really don't understand what's going on behind the subject that is portrayed. All these elements are constant for along the Modigliani's career and until we get to the end of his career in 1919. Okay, also the last portraits will be characterized by these long necks, the geometric faces, and whatever is included in this list. Here I have included also two details about the eyes. So you see that when he put no pupils or irises inside the eyes were flat and almost like a mask that I was telling before. So there is a connection with the African art and especially the wooden masks that he, for sure, he knew about. I don't know if you find them scary. Maybe they give to the painting a sort of impersonal touch. You see that there is a detachment between you and the person that is portrayed, and in this case is Jeanne. But I think that this is quite a unique feature, and it really made Modigliani's work immortal. It will never die, it will always be remembered. He had the passion for big nudes, and you see how the female figure is appreciated and is very soft and welcoming to the viewer. Of course, it was a scandal to have an exhibition of nudes in that time in Paris, and it was very hard for him to find places where to exhibit. Picasso was had another style, and he had a different approach to the artist's life. Um, they respected each other, but they were so different, really. Even in the cases of the nudes, you see that the background is very basic. So the real center of the figure is the body, okay, and whatever include the body includes. So pleasure, love, and peace in this case. So rest. Mm, let's follow Modigliani during his life in Paris. So after 8 years, he's able to move into another study, another studio in Montmartre, and this picture is authentic. So it shows that his friends, artist friends, helped him to carry all the remaining paintings that still had in the studio, and they were moved into the new studio in Paris as well. And here is a picture of Modigliani that you see on the left. And who's the man in the center of the picture? Can you recognize him? Of course, I'm sure that you really know. He's Pablo Picasso. They were enemies, artistically speaking. Maybe they were very, very different, but they brought respect one another. And the main difference between Modigliani and Picasso was the lifestyle. Picasso was terribly serious in making art. And I mean that he avoided alcohol, he avoided drugs because he knew that Those elements would have driven him away from making art seriously and effectively as he was doing. And it was really the way to success, because Picasso lived a long life, and of course he is a is a summary of the art of the 20th century, you know. Modigliani, instead, on the other side, was the opposite, because we already know that he was not able to think about an art career without um, self destruction. And it was quite the result of his studies in philosophy, too. But let's go ahead and let's have a wider look to the School of Paris, because who could you see with Modì? So many artists were connected with Modigliani. And we said, and I will repeat until the end, that there is not one artist alone, but they were a group. And as a group, they changed the history of art. First of all, Diego Rivera, and you may have heard about him if you were able to see the replay of my lesson about Frida Kahlo. And he was in Paris in in the second decade of the 20th century, okay? And it was portrayed. So Modigliani started to portray everyone, not only because he wanted to be paid, but just because of for the sake of it. So we have a portrait of Diego Rivera, and it's quite similar to the original, I think. A portrait of Shane Southin, who was another painter. Please check him. Okay, check everyone you see I mentioned, because if I can continue to go into details, I can stay here forever because they are amazing. Okay, Shane Southin and Pablo Picasso, yeah, in a cubistic, you know, approach to portraiture. You see already the geometry prevailing. No, the style has shifted. Now we have the real Modigliani. And finally, Jeanne, his biggest love. Uh, just before I start talking about Jeanne, I will dedicate the rest of the lesson to her and about their love story. Modigliani was, very loved by women, as I said, and he was appreciated, and he find in women a strong allies. He had love affairs, for example, with an English poet whose name was Beatrice Hastings, and she supported him for a few years, but in the end she had to say goodbye because he was destroying himself, and he had all bad health conditions, as we will see. And in spite of his health conditions, he used drugs and alcohol, and again. So she had to break this relationship and left him go to his destiny, and his destiny was named Jeanne Buterne. Jeanne Buterne was 14 years younger than Modigliani. She was a baby when he met him. She was almost maybe 17 years old, 18 years old. She was a baby, and he was 32. So the difference is quite huge considering the period of time. She was an artist as well, and she studied at the Accademia Colarossi, where she met Modigliani. She was introduced to Modigliani by another sculptor, a Japanese sculptor, I don't remember his name. She was his model, and so they were all together inside the academy. And she used to pose as a model for many artists, and her artistic name was Noix de Coco. which means coconut because of her long hair, straight long hair that made her face seem quite a coconut maybe. The economic and religious view of Jeanne's family was very different from the one of Modigliani because the family of Jeanne was Catholic. So when they started to date out and the relationship was quite official, there have been many contrasts. So uh, fa- uh, they had difficulties in finding appreciation in her family, and she was beautiful, you know. I love her very much. She was so delicate, and her eyes were amazing. I think they were very light. I really don't know. I really don't know. But we will see that her daughter, she's very similar to her mother. So the family of Jeanne opposed to their relationship, but they went to live together, and she became the muse for Modigliani. She became the subject of most of his paintings. He was so in love with her that the memories say that he was anxious about her, anxious about the idea that she could leave him anytime. I think that it was quite a paranoid, also because of the drugs, and she was by his side until the end, in good and bad luck. He was an amazing artist. He just was too, he didn't love himself enough. That's the point. That's the point. But let's spend a few minutes about Jeanne Buterne. She was the queen of his heart. You can see portrayed her in, in every possible pose and every possible clothing. And you see that some of the portraits show that she was portrayed with irises and pupils. It means that Modigliani had found her soul. He had discovered that her soul, and she was like an open book to him. How she loved him. Amazing, incredible. I think that I'm quite a romantic, but I think that every woman deserves to be loved like this, to be the muse of a man, not to be portrayed because we are not artists all the time, but every woman deserves to someone who says, okay, you are my Jeanne. For me, this is the romantic and passionate love, not the ideal love, but my idea of passionate love. I particularly love this, and you see that in this case, there is Jeanne, sometimes the geometry and the linearity of the features really become alive because he is able to put some, interiority in her, and I love her so much. She is able to speak through her glance, through her eyes. They speak, they are alive. And this is the magic of the portraits by Modigliani. They are alive. Not all of them, because they are quite different. If you don't see the irises, but those who have irises and pupils, they are alive, friends. They are alive. They were poor, terribly poor, and so a friend of Modigliani and also one of the art trader who helped him to sell his paintings, called Leopold Zorowski, paid for them to move to Nice, where the climate was better, and she gave birth to a daughter whose name was Jeanne as well. And the following year, so in 1919, they came back to Paris with the young baby. But it was quite hard for Modigliani to find the stability to grow up a family in a classical way. Okay, he was going to ask and propose to Jeanne to get married with him, but then, when he saw that he was not able to guarantee such a quality of life, he abandoned the idea. Of course, you see that the Catholic parents of Jeanne wanted them to be married. It really didn't matter a lot that it was if he was a Jew or not, but to recompose the scandal, no, to put some water on this big fire of people talking about a single mom and the typical artist who had abandoned him after the seduction. But the health conditions of Modigliani got worse and worse and worse, and all was worsened by the use of drugs and alcohol. And you see, I really summarized some of the keywords for this. So the self-destruction coupled with the genius and the abuse of drugs and alcohol. And he used to say that the only path to creativity was through defiance of social norms and disorder of life. I don't think so, guys. So please don't follow him. He must have been depressed somehow. We really don't know. We are not able to identify if he suffered from for a psychological disease or disorder. Okay, I'm not a psychologist, so I have no way to do this. But I really am sure that the path to creativity is a joyous one. That's why I'm here. That's why I opened this group, which is amazing. That's why I am going to talk about a special thing that I'm going to deliver since the end of August, and I will talking about this in a few moments when I close up this presentation. The path to creativity must be a joy and a continuous discovery, at least for me. When they came back to Paris, Jeanne became pregnant again, so she was waiting for another baby. And it's quite curious that I know, because I saw them, Modigliani had portrayed a lot of kids, because it was paid, of course, during his career. But it was quite meaningful to me that I also found this portrait of a woman carrying a baby dating back to 1918. Okay. Unfortunately, in 1920, his health conditions were terrible, and the end was behind the corner. So he was brought to hospital in Rue de la Charité, and of course, Jeanne couldn't do anything for him. When he died, she wasn't there, and he was with his friends. One of them was Moise Kisling, that he was able to put some plaster on the face of Amedeo Modigliani and made a funeral mask. I will show you in a moment. In the memories of Moise Kisling, we read that when Jeanne was told about the news, she screamed so much that he will never forget the sorrow and the grief of Jeanne's scream, because she was desperate. She was alone with a baby, and her half of the heart, his twin soul, had gone. This is the funeral mask I was telling before. She was pregnant and 8 months, so almost ready to give birth to the other kid. And after he died, she went to stay at the parents' home, but it didn't last long, friends. After 2 days that Modigliani died, she decided to commit suicide and she threw herself out of the window from her parents' home. She died, and so his child. How love and tragedy are linked one another. That's why the figure of Modigliani and Jeanne Buterne together is so strong, because you see that they were not able to live without each other. That's why I am quite involved in this love story, even if it's very tragic, really. People say that even death could not separate their love, and Modigliani was, after his death, was buried in Père Lachaise cemetery, which is quite famous. She was buried elsewhere, but after some years, the Modigliani's brothers asked to the parents of Jeanne to bury them together, because they were only one thing in life and they deserve to rest for the eternity together. And so now, if you go to the Père Lachaise cemetery, you find a single grave, just one grave, with both of them lying there. And there are two epitaphs on the grave, which are written in Italian. So I'm going to translate them for you. To Amedeo Modigliani, pittore, that means painter. Morte lo colse quando giunse alla gloria. It means that struck down by death at the moment of glory. And it really was the glory, because I think that his art had come to a maximum level of beauty when he died. In spite of the illnesses, he was a great painter. And Jeanne Buterne is said to be compagna devota fino all'estremo sacrificio. She said, devoted companion to the extreme sacrifice. I don't think that I have to spend more words about this, but life goes on, and the memory of Modigliani and Jeanne Buterne or their love was carried on by the little Jeanne Modigliani. And here she is. And you will see that her glance, her face, her facial expressions are very similar to her mom's ones. And during her life, she got married with an Italian economist. When she grew up, was totally devoted to bring Modigliani's art to people. So to celebrate the art of her father, building on a foundation and so an institute that is able to provide scholarships and organizes exhibitions and really gives lot of information about Modigliani's art. And it's an official voice, and you find it on Facebook, on Instagram, and they have their own website. Curiously, like many other artists, during life Modigliani was not able to sell a lot, or at least to sell for a single painting for a lot of money. And he had just one exhibition in Paris, and that exhibition was stopped by the city government because of the scandal, because you could find some nudes, and at that time displaying nude bodies was quite a problem. Okay, so Jeanne Modigliani has made a strong work to widespread the art of Modigliani, the painter, and we really owe something to her. Okay, it's for her is a real reconnection to the past, because you have to understand that she was raised up by Jeanne's mother, and so I think that she discovered through the time who her relatives were and how exceptional their love story had been. This is the end of my speech about Modigliani, and I hope you found it useful for your self growth as creatives, not necessarily as artists, because I am sure that you are here not necessarily because you are an artist, but simply because you love to stay creative, just like me. And like the previous time with Frida Kahlo, now I want to challenge you a little bit and proposing you a sort of prompt to draw and create in the spirit of Modigliani's art. So today we'll play with distortion, okay? We know that Modigliani represented elongated necks, and those necks were so elegant and so harmonious, no? Just let me go by the side. So harmonious, and we can, make have a try with this. So I ask you to think about the physical feature that you want to hide because you hate it. Okay, for me, for example, the the belly, or something else, or the physical trait that you love the most of you. For me, for example, the eyes or the lips or the hair. So think about just one feature, okay? And I want you to have a try in portraying yourself, not looking at you at the mirror, because it's not the aim of this prompt. So let's kick off realism, and let's go expressive. In this case, I want you to sketch a portrait, a self-portrait of yourself through charcoal or pencil on a piece of paper. Let's have a try, and keep it raw, guys. Keep it raw. So don't waste time in yeah, 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 I'll do it like this. Don't be tight. Okay, let it go, because I want to see how you can incorporate the distortion and the exaggeration. Exaggerate, because you are displaying something that is meaningful to you in a positive way, in a negative way, I don't know, but exaggerate it. So you really put an accent on it. This is my final recommendation. So I will post the prompt in a separate post in the group, so that you are able to have a try, even if you didn't follow the art class, which I hope that you will be able to take a look at. So please use the hashtag replay. And I know it's quite long. I know that 1 hour is quite long, but um, when you are at school, 1 hour is the ordinary for explaining something. So I'm tuned on the time, for the right time and the right length of my speech, to make you really understand what we're talking about. If I was too condensed, then you would not understand anything of what I'm telling you. And I hope that it was not complicated, or at least I tried my best not to make it too complicated. Our next event about the Teatime series will be in September, and I was suggested and asked to introduce the art of Giorgio Keffi, and so I will. So Stephanie Lester and will be happy to hear about Georgia Cafe. I'm quite new to Georgia Cafe, so I will study, I will take my information, and then I will deliver it to you in a special way with a special prompt, also to get the interaction with the artist and to get inspiration. I was telling you before that I'm going to introduce a new monthly event. So I will be delivering a monthly event dedicated to intuitive painting and drawing. And this is quite an ideal follow up of the prompts that I give normally after the art classes, like the one I just gave and I just explained. Please watch the replay. With these intuitive drawing classes, I will teach you just a small bite of technique each month, okay? Because these classes are not just for artists, but they are for everyone. So don't be afraid of making a mess, of drawing badly, because don't focus on the result. Not at all. At the beginning, we go for abstract, so we will learn about how to making marks and the meaning. So we will devote a lot of attention to those things. This is a monthly event in a circle that I'm about to launch, and this is called the Meditative Artist Circle. So we will meditate, we will read books to dedicated to a single prompt each month, and then we will draw together. Stay tuned, follow the space for more and more news. And by now, it's everything from Italy, and lots of love. Bye bye. Bye bye.